You don't feel rich when you hit $25,000. There's no confetti, no lifestyle montage, no moment where the world suddenly applauds. What actually happens is quieter, almost confusing. You wake up one day and realize your fear sounds different. Not gone, just different. For most people, the first $25,000 is the longest money journey they'll ever take. Not because the number is big, but because of what it represents. It's the point where money stops being purely survival and starts becoming something else, something psychological, something structural, and almost no one talks about that part. Right now, this matters more than ever. Inflation has turned basic life into a monthly negotiation. Rent resets itself upward. Groceries feel like a prank. Jobs feel less stable even when they look stable. In that environment, $25,000 isn't wealth, it's a buffer, a thin one. But it's the first time the ground beneath you isn't cracking every time something goes wrong. Before this point, money controls your calendar. Your decisions are reactive. Your plans are short. Your tolerance for risk is basically zero. A flat tire isn't annoying. It's a threat. A slow month at work isn't inconvenient. It's panic. You don't think in years. You think in paychecks. Then, slowly, almost without noticing, something shifts. Here's what's actually happening under the surface. At zero savings, every expense competes with every other expense. There is no hierarchy. Everything feels urgent because everything is urgent. The system you're living inside is simple. Income comes in, bills go out. Whatever's left gets absorbed by stress. When you start saving, the first few $1,000s don't change your life. They just change your anxiety level, a little. You're still fragile. One hit and it's gone, so your brain doesn't trust it yet. But as that number grows, something mechanical kicks in. $25,000 is roughly 6 to 12 months of bare-bones living expenses for a lot of people. Not comfort, not luxury, survival. And survival time is power. Not in a movie sense, power in a leverage sense. It's the difference between I can't afford to say no and I might be able to wait. Waiting is underrated. Waiting lets you avoid bad deals. Waiting lets you decline bad jobs. Waiting lets you pause instead of panic. This is where the math gets uncomfortable. Most people believe income changes your life. It doesn't. Cash flow just changes your speed. What changes your position is stored time. Savings is time you've already paid for. At $25,000, you've bought months of breathing room in advance, and your nervous system knows it. You start sleeping differently. Not better, differently.
Your mind stops scanning constantly for the next problem. It still worries, but it worries forward instead of sideways. You begin noticing things you ignored before. Bad subscriptions, wasteful habits, lopsided trade-offs. Ironically, this is also where money gets more dangerous, because this is the level where people start confusing stability with safety. The hype says, once you have a cushion, you're secure. The reality is harsher. $25,000 doesn't protect you from big disasters, medical events, legal issues, market crashes. It protects you from small chaos piling up into catastrophe. That's still huge, but it's not invincibility. This is where the system reveals itself. The economy isn't built to make you wealthy. It's built to keep you moving. As long as you're forced to earn immediately, you're predictable. You accept bad terms. You absorb shocks quietly. You don't negotiate. You don't pause consumption to think. You just keep running. Savings breaks that loop slightly. Not enough to escape it, enough to see it. At $25,000, people often feel an odd dissatisfaction, Life feels less dramatic, but not more exciting. The adrenaline fades, the emergencies slow down, and in that quiet, a new question appears. If I'm safer now, why don't I feel freer? Because freedom isn't a number, it's a slope. This amount of money doesn't move you into a new class, it moves you into a new mindset. You stop optimizing for today and start negotiating with the future. That's when irony shows up. The same system that punished you for being broke now rewards you for being patient. Fees disappear, interest rates improve, options multiply. People take you more seriously, not because you changed, but because your timeline did. Money didn't make you smarter, it gave you time to think, and time exposes things. You realize how many purchases were emotional insurance, how many goals were borrowed from other people, how much effort went into looking stable instead of becoming stable. This is also where fear tries to rebrand itself as ambition. You start thinking about investing, scaling, risk, growth, not because you understand them deeply yet, but because standing still feels inefficient now. This is where many people stumble. They rush to turn stability into excitement. They mistake motion for progress. They trade a buffer for a story. But the quiet truth is that $25,000 is not the finish line of accumulation. It's the beginning of strategy. It's the first time you're allowed to ask better questions. What kind of risk is actually worth taking? What expenses are buying status instead of utility? What work pays in learning instead of just cash? Zoom out further and the implications get darker. A society where most people never reach this point is a society locked in short-term thinking. Political instability, consumer debt cycles, emotional spending, high stress tolerance for bad conditions. Savings isn't just personal finance, it's behavioral control. And that's why it feels different. Not because life becomes easy, because life becomes negotiable. You're still one bad decision away from sliding backwards, still exposed, still human, but now you can see the machinery, the incentives, the traps disguised as rewards. The uncomfortable part is this. Once you've felt this shift, you can't unfeel it. Going back to zero doesn't just hurt financially, it hurts psychologically. You know what breathing room feels like now. You know what it's like to not rush every answer. So the question at the end isn't, how do I get here? It's, what do I do now that I can see? Because $25,000 doesn't solve your money problems, it reveals them. And what you choose to build on top of that revelation determines whether this number becomes a foundation or just a temporary pause before the next scramble.